This episode of Yesterworld is sponsored by Surfshark Alert, a service that alerts you of data leaks or breaches to your personal information. Go to surfshark.deal/yesterworldalert and use code YesterworldAlert for 75% off a 1-year plan, plus get 3 extra months and a VPN subscription for free. On a previous episode of Yesterworld, we took a break from the channel's more traditionally serious topics, with a deep dive into 5 stories of some of Disney's less than shining moments of theme park history. Well, a lot of you seem to really enjoy it, so I figured it was about time for another entry. So here's 5 more stories of Disney's worst theme park blunders and mistakes. But remember, it's all in good fun. If you're like me, you've always dreamed of visiting Tokyo DisneySea, the Disney theme park many describe as a true masterpiece. From its innovative attractions, unique experiences, and immersive theming, it's arguably the pinnacle of Walt Disney Imagineering. One of its most charming attractions is Sindbad's Storybook Voyage, a relaxing boat ride featuring highly impressive animatronics and a pretty darn catchy musical score. However, the attraction originally opened as Sinbad's 7 Voyages, and while just as, if not more impressive, it was also, well, terrifying, at least for children.
The big secret is Sinbad's 7 Voyages, a groundbreaking ride that features more than 160 animatronic characters.
It began innocently enough, and wasn't all that different from how it appears today, as visitors sailed past a joyous marketplace. However, soon you found yourself in a dark, ominous cavern, with some truly haunting music and a nightmarish chorus. You then came upon a group of treacherous sirens, calling out for you to join them on a trip to Davy Jones' locker. As you made your way through the treasure chamber, you caught a glimpse of a mischievous-looking creature peeking through the caverns beyond. The next scene showcased a terrifying musical score, with a not-so-jolly green giant attacking Sinbad and his crew as they hold on for dear life. A bit later, and arguably the most disturbing, was the trip through a cavern filled with dozens of screeching black-eyed monkeys. As if the imagery wasn't horrific enough, the music and high-pitched screams of the soulless monkeys were just as nightmare-inducing. Now let's be honest, Sinbad's 7 Voyages was no alien encounter, but for a children's ride it was pretty intense. Evidently, the darker scenes led to a lot of complaints from parents, and children coming off the ride in tears or visibly distraught was a fairly common occurrence. Plans were almost immediately set in motion to de-intensify the attraction, but with the tragic events of 9/11 seriously affecting tourism, these changes were put on hold. It wasn't until 2005 that the ride was finally closed for a lengthy refurbishment, which reopened a few months later as the much more child-friendly Sindbad Storybook Voyage. The once distressing run-in with the sirens was reimagined with a group of helpful and beautiful mermaids aiding Sinbad and his crew. The now jolly green giant was no longer spying on the group in the treasure room, but a captive who Sinbad is in the process of setting free. As a token of thanks, he plays a charming melody on his whimsical instrument and sings a lovely tune. The monkeys also had a sudden change of heart, as the hideous screeching gave way to a catchy jungle beat, and most of them were now playing musical instruments or holding onto bananas. One of the more curious changes was replacing the somewhat menacing whale to a way too happy one instead. Adding to the confusion is the fact that Monstro and Pinocchio's Daring Journey, which also appears at Tokyo Disneyland, is arguably far more scary. It's a curious situation, because while some see the original, more intense version as the blunder, others feel the drastic overhaul was a mistake, removing much of what made the attraction so unique. In June of 2012, the Bakersfield Californian published a number of rather peculiar photos, showing what appeared to be a flying dragon of sorts near the Kern County Shafter Airport. The photos had been taken by a local business owner, and before long, the dragon-like aircraft was linked to none other than Walt Disney Imagineering. It turned out Disney had rented the airport to run some test flights, but swore airport officials to secrecy by having them sign non-disclosure agreements. To add even more to the mystery, it was discovered that just 2 years earlier, the company had filed a patent application, which by all appearances seemed to be schematics for the very same flying dragon. The anomaly took the Disney theme park community by storm, with rumors circulating all over the web as to what exactly this could be for. Was it tied to Animal Kingdom's Beastly Kingdom? Was the unbuilt land finally becoming a reality? Or was it part of Disney's then recent announcement of an Avatar land? This was, at the time, the most credible explanation, as many assumed it was to be part of an elaborate parade, night show, or an attraction based on the film's Banshees. However, another possibility that was thrown into the mix was that it had something to do with the Magic Kingdom's upcoming new Fantasyland expansion.
What is that? It's flying!
Fast forward to December 3rd, 2012, when a real-life dragon was spotted flying over the Magic Kingdom. Then a day later, an interview with a mysterious and totally unrecognizable Disney character hinted of a dragon in New Fantasyland. Of course, this was all just part of an elaborate marketing campaign, but it also put an end to all the speculation. The dragon was for the Magic Kingdom expansion, but exactly how it was to be utilized was still a complete mystery. Well, on December 5th, a day before the official grand opening, the dragon finally made its appearance during a press event. The dragon itself was incredibly impressive, as together with the carefully placed lighting which obscured the fan and parachute, on top of the realistic movement, it truly was a sight to behold. Heck, it even breathed fire. But it turns out, that's literally all it was, a publicity stunt for the new Fantasyland expansion. Even more disappointing was that regular parkgoers never got to see the dragon for themselves, as it was listed as a one-night-only event restricted to the press, executives, and special invitees.
Come back! Come back! Come back!
After almost a year of anticipation, this unsurprisingly left many Disney theme park fans confused, a tad disappointed, and even a bit angry. Upon hearing of this, Disney confirmed it really was just a one-night-only appearance, but also teased it could make a return. It did not. Now personally, I think this was initially intended to be a recurring event, such as Tinkerbell flying over guests before the nightly fireworks, but something happened along the way. Because as it stands, it really does seem like an awful lot of effort for something with such little payoff. When it comes to Disney's theme park shows, there were few as magical as the Main Street Electrical Parade. It first debuted in 1972 as a rather crude and hastily thrown together nighttime event, in which minus a few exceptions such as the dragon, virtually all of the parade floats were completely flat. Then in 1977 it was given a three-dimensional makeover, and for almost a quarter century it endured as one of the park's most beloved events. Flash forward to the early 90s, as with the monumental success of Fantasmic, Disney began developing yet another nighttime spectacular. Now the history of this very troubled production is incredibly tedious, and visuals of its early evolution are all but non-existent. So for an extremely detailed deep dive, I highly recommend Jim Hill Media's multi-part blog entry, which you can find in the description below. However, to summarize for our purposes, this new parade was known as Lightkeepers, and was to be part of the brand new Tomorrowland, otherwise known as Tomorrowland 2055. The parade went through 2.5 years of development and planning, and was pretty integral to the storyline of the upcoming updated land. But then came the newly appointed head of Disneyland, Paul Pressler, who was hired to cut costs of the Disney parks by almost any means necessary.
Disneyland is always evolving, and as Walt had said, Disneyland will never be complete as long as there's imagination, and we've got plenty of it.
One of his first casualties was the cancellation of the original vision for the new Tomorrowland, and along with it, Lightkeepers. So then another year was spent on Lightkeepers 2, a cheaper and more merchandise-friendly version, which meant redesigning the alien-like Tomorrowland creatures and including iconic Disney characters, such as Tinkerbell and her pixie friends. But then this version was cancelled as well, and the focus became entirely on the Pixies and Disneyland characters. It was also changed to a street-tacular show, and was initially called Tinkerbell's Night Magic, which was soon renamed as Tinkerbell's Light Magic, and eventually simplified to just Light Magic. The basic concept of this version was about a group of pixies, who thanks to a mystical cosmic event, wind up at Disneyland. They then proceed to awaken all the sleeping Disney characters of the Magic Kingdom, teaching them all about the wonders of their pixie dust. Or something like that. In my own defense, even the creative team had a tough time explaining the story.
These magical pixies arrive on this magical night at Disneyland with a mission. And they wake up all of the classic characters to share this magical moment with them, and the magic in this instance is actually pixie dust. They kind of show them how that pixie dust works and gets them to understand that there are magical things in the world that you can actually play with and believe in.
Work on this variation officially began in early 1996, and all jokes aside, it really did have a ton of potential. It would feature state-of-the-art fiber optic lighting, special projection effects, a musical score by Fantasmic composer Bruce Healey, and impressive dance routines synchronized to the special effects. It was even to feature a flying Tinkerbell, which is why she was so prominently featured on virtually all forms of merchandise and promotional material, but more on that later. The problem was that once the concept was finally finalized, the creative team was given a measly year to year and a half to put the entire show together. Why? Because at the last minute, Disney decided Light Magic wouldn't just be another nighttime show, but a replacement of the Main Street Electrical Parade. So with its farewell season being announced pretty far in advance, all of a sudden Light Magic had giant shoes to fill, and a very short amount of time to do it. This led to effects being scrapped, essential pre-show elements to explain the story abandoned, and simply not enough time to work out all the logistics. It didn't help that midway through development, Disney CEO Michael Eisner saw a little show called Riverdance, which was a huge fad in the mid-90s, so he insisted they revolve the entire show and dance routines around this phenomenon, which in a case of horrible timing, was already on its way out in pop culture. But things would get worse. Much worse.
That's right. It's certainly become a Disneyland classic, and there are the lights. The parade is over. The farewell season has ended, and the farewell show is done, and now we're going to be looking for our new show next year.
The Main Street Electrical Parade held its final show in November of 1996, and Disney immediately began promoting its upcoming replacement. As work on the show itself continued behind the scenes, in early 1997, construction began on creating a much wider terrace in front of It's a Small World. This would offer an even better viewing experience for the upcoming Light Magic, which had a stop in Fantasyland and then Main Street USA. Specifically for Fantasyland, there was also the construction of 3 nearby towers for the parade's fiber optic effects. Over on Main Street, the roofs were raised for their lighting effects, which would also utilize the windows in nearby building structures. All of this led to the show's budget to balloon to, as some insiders estimate, a whopping $40 to $60 million, or $65 to almost $100 million today.
In spring of 1997, Light Magic will light your path to all your dreams. This wonderful environment of lights, fiber optics, special effects, music, pixies, and classic Disney characters will encourage everyone to dream and to believe that dreams can come true.
Despite being far from finished, Light Magic was scheduled to officially debut on May 23, 1997. But Disney offered annual pass holders a chance to see the show before anyone else on May 13th in a special private event for an additional $25. They were promised to be the very first Disneyland guests to view the brand new parade in all its glory, so to say expectations were high is an understatement. Unfortunately, the show was so incredibly behind schedule that upon arriving to the highly anticipated event, pass holders were told what they would be seeing wasn't the world premiere of the finished show, but quite literally the first dress rehearsal, a quote, work in progress. The show was filled with severe technical problems, and for something that was replacing the beloved Main Street Electrical Parade, this led to a lot of negative reactions. After the show, City Hall was flooded with angry pass holders demanding refunds, with a line stretching out far into Main Street. Things got so out of hand that Disney cast members were eventually given the go-ahead to give cash refunds, absolutely no questions asked. Despite this setback, for the next week and a half, Disney worked tirelessly to get the show ready for its official debut to the public. And the reaction was, well,
Disneyland makes the night come alive with light magic. It will fill you with wonder, like nothing you've ever experienced.
Now, despite popular belief, Light Magic wasn't seen as the worst Disney show of all time, and much of its infamy can be traced back to the disastrous pass holder preview. That being said, aside from the incredible fiber optic effects and catchy musical score, the vast majority were left fairly unimpressed with the show as a whole. Many found the storyline confusing, with the Riverdance-inspired choreography repetitive and a bit underwhelming. It didn't help that since the floats never moved once in position, unless you were almost dead center in front of the stage, it was 14 minutes of an awkward eyeline of the performances and effects. The film portion was even more of a problem, as aside from the corny live-action segments that drew audible laughter, and not in a good way, it was virtually impossible to see from anywhere but dead center. Also, remember the Tinkerbell flying effect I mentioned earlier? Well, initially this was achieved with a pyrotechnical lighting effect on a wire, which flew across the Main Street USA windows as they lit up like magic. But on opening day, poor Tink fell off her path and crashed into the ground in a fiery ball of pixie dust, so the effect was completely abandoned from future shows. After its official premiere, the reception of light magic never really improved, and failed to capture the hearts and imaginations of the average parkgoer. There was also the issue of the pixies, who wound up terrifying children when approached to be part of the show, so they had their off-putting face masks removed. Another problem was shoplifting of all things, as evidently after the first performance in Fantasyland, swarms of people tried to leave the park, only to get stuck on Main Street behind the second performance. This led to absolutely massive crowds flooding the shops, and from what I'm told, a surprising amount of theft. To fix this, the route of the parade was reversed, but the change forced Disney to quite literally move the floats in broad daylight, right in front of visitors waiting for light magic, which deflated much of the anticipation.
Well, what do you think so far, Alex?
I think it's just delightful. The colors, the music, hey, it's Disneyland at its best.
Had to be, so let's go back to Main Street, USA for more light magic.
Ultimately, light magic lasted a meager 4 months before going into a supposed 2-year retooling phase, but as predicted by those on the production, it would never return. Without a new nighttime show, Disney simply utilized the newly installed lighting system to allow daytime parades to run at night, which proved to be a huge success, and saved Disney a bundle. And remember those special effects towers I mentioned in Fantasyland? Well, you can still find them today, left behind as a reminder of the infamous light magic. Oh yeah, there's also the magnetic stopping points on the ground, and on Main Street you can still see the fiber optic panels. Okay, in hindsight, this really should have been its own episode.
Hi, Musketeers! Hi! Well, today is, right!
The origins of the Mickey Mouse Club Circus can be traced back to the Mickey Mouse Club television show, with a weekly segment known as Circus Day. It made its official debut in October of 1955, and would continue for the first 2 seasons of the show. But it turns out Walt Disney envisioned more than just a televised circus, but one that was to be featured within his recently opened theme park, Disneyland. The Mickey Mouse Club Circus opened 1 month after its television counterpart, and was actually quite the spectacle. Each show began on Main Street, USA, with a parade that led all the way to a massive tent on the other side of the park. Here, visitors could enjoy all the snacks and delicacies that came with the traditional circus. But it was the performances inside the tent that were the real draw, which ran a whopping 75 minutes and featured all kinds of death-defying stunts and impressive animal routines. Now at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, how is this unique and ambitious theme park attraction a mistake or blunder? Well, for one, it introduced a host of terrifying clowns that would randomly pop up all over the park. But my irrational fear of clowns aside, there were also quite a few problems behind the scenes. Evidently, the circus performers were prone to drink, gamble, use profanity, and even walk around, nude, which didn't go over too well with Walt Disney, who of course had very high standards for theme park employees. There were also a number of concerning incidents. For example, opening night saw one of the female trapeze artists lose her brassiere mid-flight. But hey, at least she could purchase a new one at the nearby, and very short-lived, intimate apparel shop. There was also the incident of a group of llamas escaping, running along the railroad tracks and down through Main Street. Another problem came with the predatory animals getting into fights, including a particularly gruesome incident when a tiger had its paw chewed off by a panther in front of a live audience. However, even with all these problems, there was an even bigger issue. The show just wasn't all that popular.
And Mickey Mouse. Hi, Mickey!
Unsurprisingly, the vast majority of people came to the park to see their favorite Disney characters and experience one-of-a-kind attractions, and a traditional circus just wasn't on their to-do list. In fact, despite having the capability of holding nearly 3,000 guests, a typical show saw no more than a few hundred in attendance. After just 2 months of opening, the combination of the expensive cost and poor turnout resulted in the loss of a staggering $375,000, or $3.6 million today. So the Mickey Mouse Club Circus was closed within months of opening, and thankfully took those terrifying clowns with it. Although the big tent did wind up being repurposed for Holidayland, which did prove to be much more popular with visitors.
The famed Magic Kingdom icon, Cinderella Castle, has been transformed into a giant anniversary confection with splashes of candy canes, red and pink icing, and 25 glowing candles to create the world's largest cake.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. Yes, Mark, I already know about the infamous Magic Kingdom birthday cake castle overlay. It's probably one of the most infamous overlays in theme park history, as it resulted in countless complaints from visitors who finally got their dream vacation, only to have their once-in-a-lifetime photo op taken in front of this well-intentioned monstrosity. Although, I won't lie, I'd love to see it make a return one day. You're also probably thinking, okay, but I also know about the toilet paper castle overlay. It was a single-day event in honor of the opening of Stitch's Great Escape, but that didn't stop a load of visitors from complaining, once again, that their once-in-a-lifetime trip was ruined by this bathroom-centric photo op. But Disneyland Paris's castle has a few eyesore makeovers you probably didn't know about.
Mickey just told me that he's made a new European friend, and he's here today, Marsupilami, the newest member of the Disney family.
For the park's first anniversary in 1993, the castle received a strawberry shortcake overlay. What makes this one even more interesting is that rumor has it, it was this castle variation that inspired the infamous Magic Kingdom birthday castle cake. Then in 1997, as a way to promote the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the castle was given a jester makeover. It also just so happened to be the park's 5th anniversary, so they figured, why not? Now call me crazy, but while many people call these makeovers ugly and mistakes, I actually miss a time when the Disney company could have a little more fun with their anniversaries. So maybe for Disneyland Paris's 20th, they can do something a bit more innovative than placing a giant 20 out front. However, speaking of a company doing something innovative, in the past you've seen me sponsor Surfshark, the VPN service I currently use to keep my online identity and information away from prying eyes. But while that covers your active online security, what about your passive online security? That's where Surfshark Alert comes in, a single destination for you to keep track of any and all possible data leaks or breaches to your personal and pretty critical information. It's honestly pretty amazing if you're like me and have multiple email addresses as login information spread across a wide variety of services, as it puts me at ease not having to rely on the individual websites to inform me of a possible data breach. Have more than one credit card spread across different companies and services? Same deal. Surfshark Alert keeps a close eye on all of them and will let you know if there's anything suspicious going on. Heck, you can even take it a step further and monitor your social security number, and that one isn't just your online identity, it's your actual identity. Data leaks are scary enough, and really are those kinds of things where you think it can't happen to you, until it does. So when it comes to this extra level of security, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So go to surfshark.deal/yesterworldalert and use code yesterworldalert for 75% off a 1-year plan. Plus get 3 extra months and a VPN subscription for free. This way, you'll be keeping your personal information safe while supporting the channel at the same time, so it's a win-win for us both.